Welcome to this Explainer. Today, we're stepping into the shoes of a medical detective to investigate a genuinely fascinating biological mystery. I want you to imagine a scenario where the human body, in a totally misguided attempt to protect itself, deliberately starves its own blood supply of essential nutrients. It sounds completely counterintuitive, right? But this is exactly what happens in a widespread, yet frequently misunderstood condition.
So think about this for a second. What actually happens when the body's defense mechanism turns against its own blood supply? How does an immune response that is literally meant to save your life end up causing profound fatigue and illness? Well, that's the central mystery we're going to solve today as we unravel the secrets of anemia of chronic disease.
And to make sure we master this complex topic efficiently, we'll be using the highly effective Demystifying medical framework. For those who might be new to it, this is just a really structured, logical way to navigate clinical information. It covers everything from definition and etiology right down to investigations and management. It's basically the perfect tool to keep our investigation completely organized.
So here is our Demystifying roadmap for the explainer. First, defining the anemia mystery. Second, etiology and the triggers of inflammation. Third, pathogenesis and the hepcidin effect. Fourth, clinical signs and symptoms. Fifth, investigations to crack the case. And finally, management and targeted treatments.
Let's start right in with Section 1, defining the anemia mystery.
Okay, let's dive into this. Anemia of chronic disease, or ACD, is not some rare anomaly. In fact, it's the second most common anemia worldwide, right behind iron deficiency anemia. But even more strikingly, it is the absolute most common anemia you will find in hospital patients. The absolutely crucial thing to understand here is that ACD is a secondary anemia. When a patient's red blood cell mass drops in this scenario, it's not because they have a straightforward nutritional deficiency or, just a poor diet. The anemia is entirely driven by a chronic, underlying systemic illness. Basically, the body has the building blocks, but a chronic condition is fundamentally altering how those blocks are used.
Moving on to Section 2, etiology, exploring the triggers of inflammation.
If an underlying illness is the main driver here, what exactly are the triggers? Let's line up the usual suspects that create the chronic inflammatory state responsible for all this. We're looking at a pretty wide spectrum of serious health challenges. These include chronic inflammatory diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, connective tissue diseases, and vasculitis. We also see chronic infections, things like tuberculosis, HIV, and deep bone infections like osteomyelitis. Malignancy, really any form of cancer, is another major trigger, alongside major organ failures, particularly chronic kidney disease and liver failure. So what do all of these incredibly diverse diseases have in common? Prolonged systemic inflammation. That inflammation is the ultimate common denominator for ASCD.
Next up, Section 3, pathogenesis and the hepcidin effect.
This is really the climax of our medical mystery. How does systemic inflammation actually cause anemia? To understand this, we have to zoom in on the microscopic mechanisms at play that are literally holding the body's iron hostage. The main culprit here is a tiny polypeptide synthesized in the hepatocytes of the liver, called hepcidin. Think of hepcidin as this incredibly aggressive, hoarding gatekeeper. When systemic inflammation happens, the immune system releases cytokines. Those cytokines signal the liver to ramp up hepcidin production. Hepcidin then goes to work acting as a massive negative regulator. It completely shuts down iron absorption in the gut, and it traps the iron that is already inside the body right inside the macrophages. The iron is there, but hepcidin locks it away so the body just can't use it to make red blood cells.
To firmly anchor your understanding of this pathogenesis, we can use the rule of 3 straight from the medical literature. First, like we just talked about, there is poor utilization of iron in erythropoiesis because hepcidin has trapped it all. Second, those inflammatory cytokines actually shorten the survival time of existing red blood cells. And third, there's an impaired production of and a blunted response to a vital hormone called erythropoietin.
And this brilliantly illustrates that third point perfectly. Erythropoietin, or EPO, is the physiologic regulator of red cell production. Normally, when hemoglobin falls, plasma EPO levels are supposed to increase logarithmically to stimulate the bone marrow to pump out more red blood cells. But in anemia of chronic disease, the inflammatory cytokines completely disrupt this vital feedback loop. The kidneys don't produce enough EPO, and to make matters worse, the bone marrow doesn't respond properly to the EPO that is there.
All right, Section 4, clinical signs and symptoms. We know what's happening under the microscope, but what does the patient actually experience when they walk into the exam room? Typically, they present with classic anemia symptoms, profound fatigue, lethargy, breathlessness, pallor, and maybe tachycardia, especially when they exert themselves. But here is a super important clinical nuance. Mild chronic anemia can be surprisingly asymptomatic early on, especially in young, otherwise fit patients. Why? Because the body actively compensates. Intracellular levels of a molecule called 2,3-BPG start to rise. This actually shifts the oxygen-hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right, which makes it easier for oxygen to unload into the tissues. And of course, alongside all these anemia symptoms, you're going to see the specific stigmata of their underlying disease, like joint swelling if they're dealing with rheumatoid arthritis.
Section 5. Investigations, or how we go about cracking the case. This is where the detective work gets real. The greatest challenge here is differentiating anemia of chronic disease from just a simple, run-of-the-mill iron deficiency anemia. When you run a full blood count, ACD typically presents as a mild, normocytic anemia, meaning the red blood cells are normal in size, though it can sometimes be mildly microcytic. But a key data anchor to remember is that the hemoglobin level is usually above 80 grams per liter. It's a mild to moderate drop, rarely severe unless there's some other compounding issue going on.
But here's where the lab results get a bit tricky. We know that in ACD, the red blood cells are starved of iron. But if the patient's red blood cells are iron deficient, why on earth might their blood tests show that their ferritin levels are actually high? Take a second to think about that, because it seems like a total contradiction.
Now, what's really interesting about this profile is exactly how it solves that contradiction. In both simple iron deficiency and ACD, serum iron is low. But look closely at ferritin. Ferritin is the protein that stores iron. In simple iron deficiency, ferritin is low because the body's iron stores are just completely empty. But in ACD, ferritin is normal or incredibly high. Why? Because ferritin is an acute phase protein that spikes with inflammation. This high ferritin proves to us that the iron isn't gone, it's just trapped by hepcidin. Furthermore, the total iron binding capacity, or TIBC, is high in true iron deficiency as the body begs for more iron, but it's low or normal in ACD. This specific lab profile is the absolute smoking gun that confirms our diagnosis.
Finally, Section 6, Management and Targeted Treatments.
Okay, we've solved the mystery of what's happening. Now, how do we actually fix it and help the patient? The absolute paramount strategy is to vigorously treat the underlying cause. If you get the rheumatoid arthritis or the chronic infection under control, the inflammation drops, the hepcidin drops, and the anemia often just corrects itself. But if that isn't enough, we can step in directly. We can use recombinant erythropoietin or synthetic EPO to force the bone marrow to produce more red cells. We can also give parenteral or IV iron supplementation. Giving oral iron pills usually doesn't work well here because hepcidin is blocking gut absorption. But giving it intravenously safely bypasses that hepcidin blockade in the gut, completely overcoming the functional deficiency. And looking to the future, medical science is actively developing hepcidin inhibitors and inflammatory modulators, which show massive promise for treating this right at the root mechanistic level.
To wrap up, I want to leave you with a really fascinating evolutionary thought. Microbes need iron to survive and multiply, right? So, was the body's mechanism of using hepcidin to rapidly hoard and hide iron away during ancient acute infections actually a brilliantly evolved survival trait? Did it literally starve invading bacteria of the iron they needed to kill us? It honestly seems highly likely. But unfortunately, in our modern era of prolonged chronic inflammatory diseases, this ancient defense mechanism just never switches off, and it merely complicates patient care by starving our own blood supply instead. It's a striking reminder of how our body's brilliant defenses can sometimes become our own worst enemies. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking great questions.